Are you actually kidding me? Like, this has to be some type of joke. And here on the Heels Advocate channel, we have been avid supporters of Jey Uso. Now, why does the Heels Advocate like Jey Uso? Now, before I even say that, please take the moment, please, before editor Zach rolls my intro, Superman punch that like button, and editor Zach, roll my intro.
You know what it is, editor Zach, please, hit my intro, oh yeah,
Now, I hope I'm not speaking out of line when I say this, but I'm speaking for the majority of WWE fans when I say this, that the entrance spamming of Jey Uso has got to absolutely stop, because this only proves one thing. How does a Royal Rumble winner, a man who wins his first ever world title at WrestleMania, in the same year get completely humiliated, set aside, get completely squashed by CM Punk twice for the World Heavyweight Championship, then he goes into the War Games match with the guy that knocked out his grills for the title. I mean, nobody sits down to think about this, and this is just almost what the WWE, I mean, not WWE, Triple H wants to do with us, bro, okay? Do we remember when Jey Uso went ahead and he lost to CM Punk for the qualifying match, right? When CM Punk was supposed to go after Seth Rollins or whatever the hell it was, right? He has a match against CM Punk, he loses that match, and he has his grills were knocked out of his mouth, literally. Then Seth Rollins gets injured, and CM Punk is going to be wrestling for the world title at Saturday night's main event. They look around, there's nobody there. Hey, Jey Uso, can you step up? And what I found particularly annoying is that neither WWE, CM Punk, or Jey Uso in their lead up to that match even talked about the fact that only 2 weeks prior to that, he literally got whooped upside that ring. What the hell, bro? Right? And this is literally the guy that beat Gunther at WrestleMania, the same Gunther that's gonna retire John Cena, right? So this is the guy that we are all praising, and the guy that can beat Gunther can't go in there and simply maybe even put up a competitive match against CM Punk, maybe get a dirty win or something. No, he can't even do that, right? And so now I am at this point where I want to talk about why I went from a Jey Uso doubter to supporter to now a hater. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Why was the Heels Advocate a Jey Uso doubter? I mean, bro, look at the obvious, bro. Look at the first visual. You look at the guy, 5'11", 5 foot, maybe 6'1" if he's lucky. I don't know, right? 225 pounds, maybe. Chubby, tubby. He doesn't look fit, bro. And like, in terms of mic skills, he's always very anxious. He's incapable of stringing together 3 sentences without having to do that one word, oos. One word, oos. Let me talk to you, oos. You and me, oos. Big time is, big J is, for what is, one word, you know what I'm saying? So, like, we're at that point, right? So, that was the reason why I didn't like him, okay? And so, when I saw John Cena compete in his last ever Royal Rumble, the fact that Jey Uso tossed him out, I was like, what the hell, right? So, I understand one thing, though. I looked at the crowd reaction. I looked at the engagement. The people were behind him. Why? Because I was behind him before he went into that Randy Savage Fruity Pebble look, right? Before that, what was he all about? Now, I'm not talking about his run as a tag. I'm talking about the 2021 era with Roman Reigns as a singles run, right? So, the main important aspect that really made me appeal to him is that, pretty much Roman Reigns in that era, he was this overlord, right? He was this guy that will bully, that would force you to be under his thumb, right? He was like the type of guy that is only great when you allow him to be the man, right? If you challenge him to be like, anything less than the man, than the guy, than the captain, all of a sudden, it's just hell breaking loose. So, in that storyline, I think Jey Uso and Roman Reigns did a great job at really portraying that. And Jey Uso is obviously a genetically inferior individual, right? He is shorter, he doesn't have the perfect jaw, he doesn't have the perfect eyes, the perfect beard, the perfect teeth, the perfect hair, pause, the tribal glaze, if you smell, is not gonna happen today. But nonetheless, you get my point here, okay? Jey Uso and him, they went at it. the Hell in a Cell match, the I Quit match, the match at SummerSlam. I think that really established Roman Reigns more than it did Jey Uso. I cannot really look at, Roman Reigns the same way if it weren't for that storyline with Jey Uso. Think about it, right? I mean, that was the most compelling storyline out of that era, and that was the storyline that finally established the tribal chief, the head of the table, the bloodline. If it weren't for Jey Uso, I highly doubt Jimmy Uso and him just could have been able to pull it off just one-on-one, right? You needed the twins. So when that was over and done with, and we finally saw Jey Uso separate himself, he went to SmackDown. Roman Reigns had already lost his belt and yada, yada, yada. So Jey Uso was always like the kind of disobedient one. And when he went to SmackDown, he found his own groove. And, he kind of got over, became tag champions with Cody Rhodes. Then he became the IC champion. That pretty much, for me, signaled the beginning of the end, right? Because he finally became the Intercontinental Champion. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he literally loses the belt after, 3 weeks? 23 days? 21 days? Something massively disrespectful. And I think that was the moment where Jey Uso kind of showed his lack of skill. And that was like the beginning of the end for me, particularly because even though he had the great underdog role against Roman Reigns, he just, to me, seems like he doesn't want the responsibility, right? And a man who runs away from the type of responsibility can never shine, truly. Roman Reigns, on the other hand, he's the guy that always wants the responsibility, whether he is deserving of it or not. The fact that he steps up makes him the sole survivor for that shine. And if Jey Uso had the same attitude, he would have gone in to that, IC title reign, or, the reign as the World Heavyweight Champion with more confidence, with a better appeal, with a better look, and he would have gotten himself over, okay? The fact of the matter is this: every single year, from the Royal Rumble up until WrestleMania, there's pretty much, for the most part, a set plan, a set guy that they will push, okay? Whoever wins the Rumble, rarely will not, not get a push, okay? So if you win the Rumble, you will get the push. And for Jey Uso's sake, that was the time for him to shine, okay? He goes in there, he tosses out Cena, he goes into the main event of, WrestleMania Night 1. Supposedly, that's what they said after he won the Rumble. Jey Uso is going to main event WrestleMania or something like that, right? But, somewhere down the line, Triple H had to weasel Jey Uso, all right? And that was the first big disrespect. I think for the most part, the Gunther versus Jey Uso storyline was pretty good. Gunther is a very convincing bully. In many ways, he resembled prime evil Roman Reigns, and Jey Uso was the perfect counter to that, okay? Now, when he went in there and he beat Gunther in the opening match of WrestleMania, I think that was the crowning moment. Now, after that, it was pretty clear that Jey Uso simply, like I said before, he didn't want that responsibility, because a man who genuinely wanted to become champion, a man who genuinely wanted to, bear all of that responsibility, would have gotten in shape, okay? If you go in there and if you bury Austin Theory in 1 or 2 minutes in the main event of Raw leading up to the match at WrestleMania, if you're being put in that situation, at least make sure that you're in shape. At least make sure that you can jump over the top rope. At least make sure that you're not gassed after doing your entrance, right? That is embarrassing. That really is embarrassing if you think about it. After 15 years being into the WWE, you finally get a push, and by the time you finally get your push, you're out of shape, you're fat, your moveset completely stinks. You didn't take on any acting classes, you didn't get on any speech classes, any public speaking classes. You didn't do any of that. This is your job, bro. Take pride in your work. And these guys, they don't take pride in the way they look, in the way that they present themselves. And this is not a Jey Uso issue. The same can be said for CM Punk. The same can be said for, Dominic Mysterio. The same can be said for Penta. I mean, pretty much every single guy, usually in the WWE is not in shape. I remember, I was talking to my wife, a few weeks ago, and I told her, I'm thinking of, become, picking up, wrestling training, right? Pro wrestling training. I was like, no, don't do that. I'm like, what? Why? I mean, it's wrestling, bro. very active, very high octane, hitting the ropes, running, jumping, rolling. Like, it's pretty active, right? I mean, like, what? It's like pretty cardiovascular intensive, if you ask me. And then she literally told me, nah, but like every time we watch wrestling, everybody on wrestling is fat. I was like, damn, Jey Uso is a fat ass motherfucker, bro. Because that is the image of the champion, right? I forgot about that because I'm invested in the storylines. I'm invested in potential. I'm invested in what can be. But the reality is I wasn't looking at what is. And I've given Jey Uso the benefit of the doubt for so long, okay? After he wins the title, he has like a brief run-in with Seth Rollins. Their matches end in a DQ, yada, yada, yada. And literally 6-7 weeks later, after winning the title, Gunther goes in there. In the middle of that ring, Jey Uso, I will crush you and pin you and stomp you in the middle of that ring. Gunther, der Ring General. Ying, 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 ying. Oh my god, bro. But you get what I'm trying to say here, right? You get what I'm trying to say here. Like, you cannot blame anybody in the WWE for taking the title off of this dude, bro. It's as simple as that. Now, I've always said, we've always gotten the best side of Jey Uso. And what is the best side of Jey Uso? If he's happy, if he's dancing, if he's joking around. This guy is very unserious. I mean, he's pretty hilarious if you ask me, right? He's like pretty funny guy when he's like with his brothers and stuff like that. But the time to be funny is over, okay? And that was pretty much the tone that was set in the lead up to SummerSlam and beyond. Now, in terms of the tone that was set during the lead up to SummerSlam was pretty much Roman Reigns was gone. He was written off TV. Then he came back to confront the Vision, Big Back Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker. Now, in that whole sequence, okay, it was pretty much always about Roman Reigns coming back and Roman Reigns trying to, go after Seth Rollins for taking him out, and he wants to, hurt him. He wants to hurt the Vision, and he went to, war basically for no reason, because if you ask me, what kind of business did Roman Reigns have with the Vision? I get it. Paul Heyman betrayed him, but, I digress. Jey Uso decides to team up with his cousin, and then they go in there and they beat up the Vision, right? Roman Reigns hits a spear or Superman punch. Jey Uso hits a spear splash, 1, 2, 3. They get the victory. And then after that, we have a singles match between Roman Reigns and Big Back Reed. Now, in the lead up to that match, Roman Reigns said one thing. He just cut a promo and he said one thing. The reason why I'm not competing for the World Championship is because I did not win at SummerSlam. I didn't get the victory. I didn't get the pinfall. It was my cousin Jey. And Jey deserves to compete for the World Heavyweight Championship. Wow, Roman. Thank you for your green light. Thank you for allowing him to compete. Because by that point, it's already September, right? It's already September. Clash at Paris was September, something like that, right? Or like, whatever, right? It was already 3, 4, 5 months after he lost the title. And nobody stopped to ask themselves, why didn't Jey Uso go after the title after he lost it? If he cared that much, right? If he really was about the world titles, and if he really cared that much, why did he wait until his cousin pretty much said go for it? What the hell? You know what I mean? What kind of a mental enslavement is this? And I find it really hypocritical, right? For Roman Reigns, I'm talking in kayfabe right here, okay? I find it really hypocritical for him to say, I'm not going to compete for that title because my cousin Jey Uso, he deserves it. But the real reason behind it is Roman Reigns sees it below himself to compete for not only the World Heavyweight Championship, but to be in a fatal 4-way, There was like this, promo that he cut with Paul Heyman. He did like a interview, right? And he pretty much said, this World Heavyweight Championship right here, this is the participation trophy. You understand? This is the participation trophy. And, look, I don't really want to chase it, but if this title needs me, then you can put it on a chief and I will elevate it. Okay? That's what he said. months before even Jey Uso went into Clash at Paris, into that Fatal 4-Way. Now, one thing leads to the other. Jey Uso, he pretty much goes into that match, that Fatal 4-Way, with like Roman Reigns in his ear. Roman is saying like, look, dude, what are you doing, man? You're being too nice. They're walking all over you. How about you be mean for a change and get what is yours? Get what you need to get back. That World Heavyweight Championship, right? Bring it back to the family. And then Jey Uso kind of started to turn heelish, okay? He was kind of being like mean, and he kind of went into this mode where he was too angry, okay? And I liked it, okay? I didn't really like him as a champion because he didn't really change. Now, him being heel, that could really change everything. I mean, who knows? He could team up with The Rock. He could become the new People's Champion. The Rock can give him the People's Championship. I don't know. Maybe after being heel, he can go in there and challenge Roman Reigns for the Ulafala. Who knows, right? I'm just giving ideas. But it all had to come in and change by Clash at Paris. He goes into that matchup, bro. And before the match even begins, right? In the opening segments of the entire show, literally Jey Uso gets attacked or something backstage. Like, bro, come on, man. We're setting him up for failure here. All right. How can we expect this guy to win anything? I mean, the company is literally sabotaging him at every single turn. And then we move on, right? And then we just kind of forget about Jey Uso. He has like a little feud with LA Knight that kind of spins into CM Punk a little bit here and there. But pretty much, WrestlePalooza rolls around. Not important. Another PLE Crown Jewel rolls around. He's not important either. He comes in to help out Roman Reigns. He costs him the match. Roman tells him, look, I don't want to see y'all up until Christmas. And what does Jey Uso do? He doesn't say, bro, who the hell are you, bro? Like, I tried to save your ass, and now you're trying to, like, just walk off and forget about us? You're supposed to be the tribal chief. You take this loss and you disappear, And instead of being like that, Jey Uso, he says, look, my twin, it's time for us to team up again. And then they start tag teaming. Like, what the hell is this, bro, right? And then we finally had Seth Rollins. Like I said, he injured his elbow. The title got taken off of him. And then he's in his like qualifying match against CM Punk. He loses that. CM Punk, he has to get another opponent by Saturday Night's Main Event. Once again, he loses. And then he literally walks into Survivor Series War Games in the same cage as CM Punk, completely, problem-free. This is the guy that beat you twice for the World Heavyweight Championship, and you don't find 1 ounce of, meanness in your blood to go after him a little bit at least? No. Instead, you walk into the ring, okay? You clear house for, 1 or 2 minutes, and then you immediately jump the cage, and then you restart your intro. Bro, you're not beating the allegations here, like the allegations of you complain, like how he said in that one interview at Raw Recap, he's like, I'm sick of people calling me an entrance merchant. I'm more than that. Are you really? Are you really, you sleazebag? And the reality is, bro, even Cody Rhodes was on the same team as him, and Cody Rhodes had beaten him for the King of the Ring. Right, in the King of the Ring tournament, Jey Uso was trying to win that tournament so he could go back and regain the World Heavyweight Championship, and he loses that match and he just shakes his hand and he walks off. That's what I'm trying to say here. So now, recently, obviously at Monday Night Raw, Jey Uso crashed out. He started to throw away some steel steps. He started to throw away some prime bottles, prime carts. He kind of messed up the side of the ring a little bit. And he just walked off storming angry. And then he cuts a promo with Jackie, right? It was an interview. And then he was pretty much saying, look, I've got all of these voices in my head that tell me to do one thing and the other, but I'm sick of that. I want to do my own thing. I want to listen to myself. I don't care what the tribal chief say. I don't care about what Jamie Uso say. I don't care about what Cody Rhodes has got to say. I don't care about what the world has got to say. I'm going to do what I need to do. And from now on, it's just me, Us, right? I wish I said it like that, but, that's really what it came down to. And that is the position that we find ourselves in right now with Jey Uso. Now, the main question is this. Is it going to be any different than what the previous 4 or 5 months were like? With all of this teasing? And I know, man, the world of wrestling moves at such a fast pace that 3 months ago almost seems like a lifetime ago right now. So, looking at that and looking at what has happened with Jey Uso, with the first promise of him kind of turning heel and being mean. What has happened with that? Nothing. What's to say that something will happen with this right now? Nothing, you know? The only thing that really changed is that Roman Reigns, after the War Games match ended and they lost, he looked at Cody Rhodes and said, look, man, it's best that you and we don't tag team no more, right? Signaling the initial spark of their feud restarting. Now, I feel a few ways about that. First of all, I believe the Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns feud is annoying now. It genuinely is. I don't think the title needs to have them two going at it again, to be honest. I don't really see the need for Roman Reigns to turn heel again. I don't really see the need for, Cody Rhodes to turn heel. Like, this cannot be a babyface versus babyface. Somebody has to turn, and I don't really need anybody to turn right now. Okay, we can have bigger players at stake right now. So that's the way I look at it. WrestleMania 42 is probably going to be so flat to the point where we need to have Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. And then I want to ask you guys this. Are we not genuinely tired from this shit? I mean, come on, bro. WrestleMania 39, WrestleMania 40, like he wins the Rumble for 39. He wins the Rumble for 40. He goes in there and beats him at 40. Then Roman Reigns disappears for 7 months. He comes back and he doesn't want to, challenge for the title. He doesn't, another year goes by and he still doesn't want to challenge. WrestleMania 41 passes by. He doesn't want to challenge for the title. WrestleMania 42 is only like 4 months away. And now suddenly, 2 years and, almost 2 years later, you want to come in and start planting the seeds to challenge him. Where the hell were you for the last year? Now that Jey Uso is starting to turn heel a little bit, now you want to come in and pull the rug right under him? Like, if I was Jey Uso right now in kayfabe, I would be sick and tired of Roman Reigns always trying to upstage me, bro. I don't know, like if I was Jey Uso right now, I would go into, the gym, lose some fat, build muscle, get mean, shave my hair or something like that, grow out my beard. I don't know, change your look, be a little bit more mean, bro. I don't know, man. Start wearing some shoe lifts so like you're like, eye level with with Roman Reigns. I don't know, bro. I'm just giving ideas here. It's time to change it up a little bit, bro. Right? Jey Uso, the character, has to be sick and tired of getting upstaged by the Tribal Chief. He has to go in there and challenge the Tribal Chief to tribal combat. Remember, SummerSlam 2023, we had Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso, and that was an amazing match. Jey Uso was about to win, but what happens? Jimmy Uso comes in and he betrays Jey. So we can just pick up right where we left off with that match, and now we can make Jey Uso turn on Roman Reigns and help Jey become the new Tribal Chief. I'm just throwing out ideas here, right? And I think the main problem is this. I see a lot of potential. I see a lot of, money that can be made with Jey Uso. I really like his potential and I really like what he did, but I genuinely hate him right now because he just completely sucks, bro. He's so trash. Like, the way that he is right now, I'm so sick and tired of it, bro. This like, oh yeah, I'm not sure if I can do it. I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. I can do it. This like, bro, stop doubting yourself. Just go in there and whoop some ass and just get it over with, bro. Like, you're one of the most tenured guys in the WWE. I think he was on the main roster before Roman Reigns, right? So come on, bro, lock in, And that is where I stand with Jey Uso, That is where I stand. As always, leave in the comment section down below what you guys think of Jey Uso. With that being said, C-Jax, please hit my outro. I'm the Heels Advocate, and I'm out.